You're alive.
Mm-hmm. Yay! Okay.
All right.
Your turn.
What are you trying to do?
What do you want to pull up so we don't have to deal with the echo thing?
Deal with the echo thing. The bulletin.
Okay.
So there's an easy way to get to it.
Simchat Yeshua?
No, actually, right-click the word. If it works this way. And up here should say bulletin. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, see, you got your face up there now.
Okay, so I should actually look good or something. Boy, that's too much work.
Ta-da!
Okay, now let's get back to our
Then I will
screen.
pop out the chat again. There we go. Hey, Auntie Barbara.
Oh, hey, it'd be a lot easier.
Your glasses.
All this technology and I can't see a thing. All right. Shalom, Ruchama. All right, Shalom, David, Shirley. Glad you're back.
That's Bernadette.
Who's that?
Bernadette says Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, there you are, Bernadette. Good. Hold on a second. Good, I'm glad you liked it. Good, we're back in, gathering back in. When we finish the prayer service and then we open up for this, do we have to, is there a way of keeping everybody live and just going from one thing to another? You have to shut it off and everybody gets dropped out?
Yep.
And then you have to have everybody come back in? Aye.
There's a streamer thing, but that's a streaming website and you can get really lost really easy because of all the video games and all the flashy stuff. And that's going to be really hard for you to function on.
All right. It's private number calling, whoever that is.
What happened to give your phone a Sabbath off? Yeah.
All right, let's see. As you can tell, we're just not quite started up yet, but good.
What taste is that?
Good, you got your matzah. We need to talk about all that during the announcements and stuff.
I love you. Are you sure?
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, what was I going to do? Oh, yeah, shut off the sound. All right. That's good. Playing with this new technology has been a tremendous amount of fun. Okay. Is anybody hearing me at all right now? Or am I just a talking face? My lips are moving, but nothing comes out.
That's because you had the thing muted on our side.
How do we unmute?
It's not, okay, the microphone isn't muted. It's, for us, the microphone shouldn't be muted. It's just the playback. See?
Oh, never mind. Okay. Just want to make sure that other people, because Shem just said he couldn't hear anything.
Oh, you can always type in the chat, can you hear us when we talk? If you need to.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Do you want this light on?
No, this is fine.
Yeah, they can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I can hear your face.
Okay.
If you can hear us, put F in the chat.
Why F?
It's a joke.
So everyone sounds like air escaping?
Yeah. That way you can hear.
Ay, ay, ay.
Okay.
So this is the good technical advice I get. All right. Give it another minute or two for people to filter in. Okay. I just have to remember to mention this several times, so I'll start getting in the habit now. If you can, I think you can just set this up as a bookmark, so you can come straight to this page, so you can get straight to it without having to try to remember anything. Also, as I hear all the YouTubers say this, so I have to repeat this myself for us. Be sure to subscribe and to hit the bell for notifications. That way you'll get notice when the live comes on. I think that's how it's going to work. Or if we post anything through here, you'll get notified. So take a moment sometime through this process to subscribe and hit the bell. That way hopefully it'll come on a little bit better. Great. Okay. Let's go ahead and get rolling, and people will connect in when they connect in. Be sure to, I think there's a place for comments outside of the video. If you click on the video of the first session, and I think you have a chance to put your comments down underneath.
Not yet. I still have to activate that.
Oh, you still have to activate it? Okay, yeah. Sometime later, do me a big favor. I need to hear from you your feedback about what you liked, what you didn't like, as far as how we're doing the service. Granted, this is the first time through, and we're still working through technical issues. But I also want to make sure that we adapt this so it's more usable and more friendly and whatever. So put your comments underneath the video when it comes up to be seen. And the difficulty is, this particular, the chat that we're doing right now, I could probably go back and read it too, but it's a lot of just simple conversation. I don't want to interfere with that. You guys are having a good time. When's the last time you were able to go to shul and you were encouraged to talk to each other? Think about that. During the service. Anyways, so anyways, put in your comments so I can read what you have to say. If you like everything exactly the way it is, tell me if there's something you want to see changed or different. Tell me. I know I thoroughly botched the Torah service because it was in the back of my head. I needed to figure out how to do something with it, and then it got always sidetracked with just the simple mechanics of just how to get this thing on in the first place. So, God willing, next week I'll have something better organized and more presentable as far as the Torah service goes. That's the one thing I had in my mind. Anyways, let's get started with the announcements. You should see on your screen the bulletin. Okay, and today is the 10th of Aviv. The Aviv is, of course, the Aviv. It's kind of a technical term. It is the early ripening barley. When the barley grows up, it's like any other grass. It grows up green, and then just before, if everything's scheduled right, just before the month of Aviv, the green drains out, the chlorophyll drains out of the stalk and the grain and goes down and harbors in the roots for the rest of the year. And then, of course, it comes back up during as the new grass grows. That stage of when all the chlorophyll goes out of the plant, it turns white, and that white phase is called Aviv. So when you read in the Bible about observe the Aviv and keep the Sabbath, the idea is that when you see that Aviv stage, you will take that next new moon to be the month of Aviv, and that's the beginning of God's biblical calendar year. We have a civil calendar year which goes on in the fall, and that's tradition. It's not biblically commanded. This is what God said is the first month of the year. So that's what the Aviv is, and so just understand what that is. Okay. Enough said. Okay. Today's April 4 by Gentile counting. We all got that. I still have the old time line up for what we would normally do face to face in real time at the shul with the Hebrew class and the opening prayer and worship and all that kind of stuff. I think for next week, I did this late yesterday, so for next week I'll reconfigure this, streamline it somewhat so it'll be more for our online viewing, unless you want to keep the times up so you can remind yourself, we should be, studying our Hebrew right about now. Okay. Today is Shabbat Hagadol, which means the Great Sabbath, or literally the Big Sabbath. It is. It's the Big Sabbath sounds like too much like the name of a TV show from the 60s. So I don't hear back from you. So that old TV show, The Big Valley. It's translated the Great Sabbath. That's sort of an interpretive edition. That's okay. The subtitle is Elijah Heralds Messiah. And again, that's a traditional statement. Obviously, Elijah heralds Messiah sometime later than this, but that's okay. We're looking forward to, during Passover, one of the big features of the Passover dinner is that we open the door and we welcome in Elijah, because he's the he's the forerunner of the return of Messiah. So we look forward to the herald of Messiah. Okay, and the special reading for this Sabbath, additional reading, is out of Malachi, the book of Malachi, which is there so you can read. Okay, we have next week's reading. Tzav is on the page, and again, the timing and our handling of everything is a little bit different. I also have up on the list Galatians, the second study in the first chapter of Galatians. Wait, didn't we do that one already? Didn't we? Or did we pass on that again? It's been so long ago, I forgot. I can actually, if you want to stick around, I can pull that up, and we can do that as a third session for today. Since everything's moving much sooner than usual, we would definitely have time to do a study in Galatians. Just have to remind me if we did 1b or if we set it up to go and never got to it. Then top of the right side of the page, which would have been the back, is next week's reading is Shmini. Next week's reading is Shmini, which means 8th. And you can spend the whole week singing that song about Enery, the 8th. Okay, you have the readings laid out there. And then upcoming events are listed. You'll notice all the public events for now are gone. And what normally would be a public event is now a home event. We have Passover coming up this Tuesday evening. It's sundown the 7th. That's always been for the family. But the second night, beginning Chag Matzot, it's a special day. It's a Sabbath. You don't do your regular work, but it's also not a traditional synagogue service. So that's also something you do at home. Hold on a second. Tamim asked a question. I need to catch up to this. Now that we have the technology, we actually could run a Passover from here and everybody tune into it. Because I was kind of concerned, because I was always assuming that we'd have our public Passover Seder, and even though it may not help you a lot if you've never done a Passover at home before, it's not going to help you a lot going this time through. But at least after the first one, you'd have some idea. When we do the public one, you'd have some idea of how it goes, and next year you'd be a little better prepared. Plus, I didn't think this ahead of time. We should have put out the Passover Haggadot for people to take home. Again, that was my oversight. I thought about that much too late to do anything about it. So it would actually be helpful.
Can you put it online?
Yeah. Now that we have this, we have the technology. So if you would like to do an online Passover Seder on Tuesday the 7th, we can arrange for that and get it done. Okay, so let me know. Let me know in your comments. It's because I'm trying to watch the take a look at my the announcements here and try to keep an eye on the comments blowing through, and I'm not keeping up with either one of them very well right now. Plus, I hear from the YouTubers who're supposed to look at the camera, not look at your text. So that's item number 3 for me to pay attention, and I'm not even trying that much right now. As we get more comfortable and with this whole process, I'm sure I'll get better at this. At least I hope so. So we can do Pesach online. And then some of the others, assuming Chag Matzot. Oh, I forgot to change something. Okay. See if I can change it. Hey, maybe I can. Let me fix this right here. Okay. Fixing things. Okay. Wow, I can even fix my announcements on the fly. All right. So Chag Matzot begins on Wednesday evening. It's a Sabbath. There's really not a special holiday or special service attached to that. And then on Saturday, April 11, it's going to be it's Yom HaBikurim. That's the Feast of First Fruits. And you know what? We can actually do this one online too if you want. It'll be probably a little less organized, but it's we can still do this live. So we can celebrate first fruits together and begin the counting of the Omer. Okay. And then we were going to have services for the end of the last day of Chag Matzot. That's also a Sabbath, no regular work. Tuesday evening through Wednesday day on the April 14 and 15. I don't know. Give me your thoughts if you want to do live something online for those services, or we can just let you guys enjoy a Sabbath at home, an extra Sabbath day at home. Okay. Then after that, the rest of the month are traditional things. Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Memorial Day. Yom HaAliyah, Israel Immigration Day. That's relatively new. Hadn't run into that before. That evening, the 24th of April, is Rosh Chodesh Iyar. And April 25 is... Yom HaZikaron, so 28, April 28 on Monday, Yom HaZikaron, Israel Memorial Day, and that melds into, that's in the evening, and it melds into Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, on April 29 this year. So, that's the calendar so far. That's a lot of stuff still going on, even there are 2 months of the year that are extremely busy. One is usually April and the other is usually October. And so because you have the major spring feasts and then the major fall feasts all crammed up together, which is, for an agrarian economy, that makes sense. because you don't want your farmers spending a lot of time away from doing what farmers do. Okay. Also, another reminder, even though we're not meeting physically, if you still want to support the operation of the congregation, you can donate through PayPal, and you could actually mail in a check. The post office box still works as far as I know. But that's those are your options at this point. Since we don't have a way of any of you getting to the box. For those of you who have a habit of giving through the box, this is what it is. Okay. All right. Any questions, comments, or rebukes with regards to the bulletin and events going on? Let's see if I can pick up a little on some of the comments.
Auntie Kelly wants you to send the announcement calendar to her in email.
Via email?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I had thought about that, but I forgot to get it done on time. I was going to have it posted on the YouTube, so as a document that you can pull down. Let me do it that way because I don't have very many email addresses. So if I do it, it's not going to be for a lot of people, right? We'll get this document put up on the YouTube channel here, and I think that would also be a good idea.
Yeah, I could do that.
When we get the chance. Okay, that might be a better idea than trying to email people. Okay. Okay, anything else? You probably look at this.
Wednesday congregations.
Wednesday congregation. Yeah, we can do that now. We have the power. Actually, it's not a bad idea. I was kind of thinking, if we could do something midweek, we can push Galatians over to Wednesday, only because by the time we get to the end of the day where we do Galatians, there's very few people left. A lot of people, I guess, don't want to stick around for it. Either they're not interested in Galatians or it's just too long of a day. But we can, if we push Galatians over to Wednesday, we can do that. Okay, just let me know what you think. Okay, Tamima mentions Passover begins on Wednesday. That's according to the Orthodox calendar, which is based on the Pharisee calendar. It appears Yeshua observed the Sadducee calendar, which begins at the beginning of the 14th of Aviv, rather at the end of the Aviv, which is the 14th of Aviv, which is how the Pharisees and the Orthodox currently do it. That's why on your calendar it's on a different day. Because when you start at the beginning of the 14th is actually on Wednesday. I'm sorry, on Tuesday. I said Tuesday, didn't I? Yeah, Tuesday. So. Okay. All right. If I can remember that for Kelly, I'll go ahead and email it anyways. But we'll see about getting it put up on the channel here.
I've got a list of stuff.
You're making a list?
Mm-hmm. Checking
it twice?
No.
Yeah, because you'd have to find out. You'd have to identify who's naughty.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on then to our let's move on to our discussion. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to need my Bible back out. Okay, we spoke a little bit about the my Bible over there, please.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Did you want me to pull up a verse?
Yes, we could. So we can have a discussion. Okay. Now, can we get the chat up on this too?
What am I doing?
Can you add the chat to this as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that way I can read the questions when they come.
Auntie Gail's voting for a community Passover on the 8th.
On the 8th?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about doing it on Passover night, just so people who have never had a Passover can walk through it. Because it's going to be kind of hard to have you do a Passover if you don't know what to do. But we can talk about that. All right.
Oh, Auntie Gloria made it.
Yeah. Hi, Gloria. All right. So let's get back over to our Torah portion.
That was Leviticus, what?
Was it Leviticus 8?
You're the rabbi.
You know what? I put the thing back.
It's not over here.
No, I put it back up where I usually leave it.
I'll get it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is verse. Oh, good. Oh, this is the
Leviticus
end of
6.
That's what I said, 6.
Thank you, Auntie Linda.
All right.
There you go.
Okay, verse.
I'll leave this behind there.
Thank you. Okay, questions, comments, rebukes.
Oh, it gives us the Parsha.
Yeah. Yeah, I think CJB organized this differently than just the simple chapter by chapter. Because yeah, all right.
Okay. Do you want to go down all the way to the Maftir? Or...
Okay, Linda says, Elisheva, you are doing an awesome job. Yay! Yeah. Yes, of course. Okay. Okay. There we go. Thank you, Yafa, for repeating it for us. Okay, it should be on your page now. So, questions, comments, rebukes. Anything stick out at you as interesting? Got a question? Anything pop out at you that you swore you've never seen before? I always like those.
There should really be a typing bubble.
What's that?
A typing bubble, so we know if someone's just typing or...
Oh, something that tells you that somebody's typing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it could be that everyone's being very polite and not putting something in. Okay. Okay, so we have a lot of burnt offering and stuff to start with. Again, God loves barbecue. I think that's his favorite way of enjoying. Okay, here's the funny thing. Kelly, you asked which day is Sabbath rest, Tuesday night to Wednesday. Actually, Passover is not a Sabbath. With all the stuff going on, it's actually not a Sabbath. But the day after Chag Matzot is a Sabbath. We're good. It's a what we call Sabbath light. It's not as stringent as the regular Sabbath. You are allowed to cook and prepare meals and all that kind of stuff. However, the commandment is don't go and do your regular job.
You're welcome, Sabrina. I'm glad my techie skills have come into use finally.
Yeah. Okay.
Auntie Gail wants to plan a community Passover on the 7th because it's the first night together.
I thought it was pizza.
No. No, the traditional calendar uses the 8th, but it appears from the way the text lays out, Yeshua began his Passover at the beginning of the 14th, not at the end, as is the current tradition.
Auntie Barbara is asking, what is the evening offering done before sundown or after sundown? Or when is the evening offering done?
Yeah. I'm having a little difficulty with reading. The print's very small, and my glasses don't always help me focus well. Are you going to do it?
How's that?
That helps some, yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is the evening offering?
When? It says what, but I'm
okay,
sure
when is the evening offering done? Before sundown or after sundown? It's called the evening offering, but it was usually done late afternoon. Anytime after 3 o'clock was approximately the right time. I don't think it was on an exact schedule. Timekeeping was a little more fluid back then. And the evening offering it was basically, if you think about it, unless you have lots of lights, it doesn't make sense to do sacrifices in the dark. So you would do your evening offerings, be done with the evening offerings sometime before sundown.
Auntie Barbara says that she heard the burnt offerings were done during the light of day and not at night as the pagans do in the dark.
Oh, there you go. All right. Yeah, that's the basic idea. I'm not aware of when the pagans do their sacrifices, so, but nonetheless, it simply makes a whole lot more sense to do it, during daylight. You can see what you're doing. Okay.
Yes, I can come over and watch the boys.
Ooh.
Yes.
Well, need to get there.
I think there might be an option to make the chat font bigger in the settings, but I have not been able to find those yet.
So
I'd have to.
No, that's okay.
I'd have to mess around with some stuff later.
Yeah, that's okay. It didn't change the font size, I don't think, so it's all right. I think we can function this way anyways.
It might also help if you're on the YouTube app to find the settings and make the fonts bigger on your end. Or if you're on the desktop YouTube, there should still be an option to change the font size to make it bigger or smaller.
Yeah. Thank you. It's the difficulty is that I don't want to accidentally, close everything off and make you all log in all over again. So
that, and I think changing the font settings for us would only work on our end. It'd still be whatever size it is on the viewer's end. So like okay. if we change the font size to like 18 on our end, it'll still stay whatever font size it is on their end, because that's the default.
Okay. So we couldn't just get into our channel account and set it there?
No, because that's just for our reviewing.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm trying to keep up with all this. I know this is kind of all new and everything's. We're talking about all the stuff. Anything about our Parsha we want to talk about? Okay, David said the problem was our end. Yeah, we can probably just change our individual settings to a size that's comfortable.
Yeah. Nicole says, what if you're saving lives, feeding the poor, attending to some serious needed mitzvot?
Well, what did Yeshua say? Okay. He said, even if your animal falls in a pit, it was permissible to haul them out of the pit. Yeshua also, on a Sabbath, in order to save a life. What did Yeshua, his challenge to the Pharisees, was it permissible to do good on Sabbath? What was the answer to that? Yeah, do it. Because, they were going to accuse Yeshua of sinning by healing a woman in the synagogue on the Sabbath. So he proved to them that it wasn't sin by healing. Now, if and then he uses it's proper to do, it's good to do good even on the Sabbath. The thing we have to weigh is, is this something that we can do after Sabbath just as easily? There are times and places where, yes, you immediately rush out and you do what you got to do, but the Sabbath, we need to work at keeping the Sabbath holy. And so, yes, you can do good on Sabbath, but we need to guard ourselves against having that become an excuse to avoid Sabbath. Okay, so. Okay, let me catch up to Linda. Reading all the details of the offerings is tough, but they are a physical representation of our heart's desire to draw close to Hashem, which I think is more important than the actual offerings. Yeah. In fact, what are the acceptable sacrifices of God? So it shows up in more than one place. What's the acceptable sacrifice to God? A contrite heart, right? And words that mirror the instructions and the desires of God. So yeah, the purpose of the physical sacrifices was to force us to deal with the severity of our sins in God's sight. It's a simple monetary thing. How many of us are going to continue to do something that costs too much money to do? If you unless you have an immense herd, to where it doesn't bother you at all to give up an animal now and then, you're going to think twice about doing a sin where you're eventually somehow going to have to go around to bringing an animal and sacrificing and confessing your sins. Oh, by the way, if you noticed in last week's reading, you lay your hands on the animal, and guess what you're doing while you're laying hands on the animal? You're confessing your sin. So in this operation, nothing is hidden. And you declare before God and anybody who's hearing you what your sins are. So that's something to consider. So it's going to be annoying enough, it's painful enough, it's embarrassing enough that you don't want to make a habit of doing this kind of thing. And so it's a good thing to make it this way. Plus, it's how the priests get paid. So that's how it's really kind of interesting when you get all the details of how the priests make their living, as it were. They get their food primarily from the sins of the people. So the holier the people are, the less the priests eat. So you think about that, it's kind of a humorous, backwards, opposite thing. You would think that it would be set up where the priests would enjoy more, when the people sinned less. But maybe that's it's a good way of judging the condition of the people by how large the how large the outfits the priests have to wear. Okay, Gail says she's using a magnifying glass. I'm not too far behind you. Actually, I'm using my trifocal glasses, and I'm constantly trying to find one that works. Okay, first day of Chag Matzot, Kelly, is immediately the day after Passover.
So is that Wednesday to Thursday?
It'll be, Wednesday to Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, obedience better than any sacrifice. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Maybe we should all start typing in caps because that's the easiest you've read something.
Yeah, but that means that everyone's shouting at me. Wednesday p.m. Wednesday sundown. Yes.
David says we are slaying part of an animal soul we can see in Jacob's blessing and Moshe's. I believe that they speak of the tribes with an animal soul. This is talked about in the Haftarah for Shabbat Hagadol. There was not only sin offerings, there was also peace offerings.
Yeah. But specifically, the priests ate the sin offerings. Actually, I guess they say, yeah, sorry, never mind. I'm okay, really.
Also, Auntie Gloria says, if man is Lord even of the Sabbath, then he can choose to do good in his heart.
Right. But it doesn't give us excuse to violate the commandments of the Sabbath. Okay? We are given opportunity to do that which is right, but for that which can be put off till Sabbath is over should be put off. You know, if there's a real danger, or if there's a real pressing need, yeah, it's okay. But we should not make Sabbath our convenience. It should be, we still have to, how do you put this? Sabbath is made for our benefit, and the rest is the benefit we're supposed to gain from the Sabbath. If we busy ourselves with doing stuff that could easily be put on other days, then we are missing on the rest that God designs for us. Okay, so you should remember our primary duty on Sabbath is to rest. That's our primary duty. And so all the other stuff that we can do, which would still be good things to do, that can be done on any other day of the week, should be done on the other days as much as possible. Obviously, you know, if you get news there's a friend in the hospital, you go and you help them. Or somebody's really sick and they really need help, you go and help them. But a lot of other things can easily be put off. And so, you know, a little judiciousness about how you observe your Sabbath. And remember, it's the basic commandments that God gives is to not work, that is to rest, and to congregate. So that's the two central commandments. So to do good, yet to do so in a manner that regularly avoids congregating or resting, then it's not a good plan. Okay. Tithe is in the... that's right, because it's Malachi, yeah. The tithe is mentioned. I think we've come to a pretty good understanding of how the tithe should work.
Where are you seeing tithe?
Tithe, right here. David. Tithe is talked about in the Haftarah.
Oh, yeah.
See, I can actually read a little bit. Yeah, David, you're right. There's not only sin offerings. I just tend to default to that because that's where my arguments often end up. Okay, let me see. Is Yehovah pleased with thousands of rams or 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul, my being? This is Micha. Yeah. Yeah, but what did God ask for us to do? A contrite heart. A heart that recognizes its own sin and wants to move from it. Okay. Still trying to keep up with the comments here. Thank you, guys. It's really nice to have all the participation.
There's this. Did you get that one? Is Adonai pleased with
Yeah.
the thousands of rams?
I just did,
Okay.
Yeah. The idea is, a willing heart, a contrite spirit, a desire to walk in God's ways and to turn away from man's ways. Yeah, this is an online electronic convocation. Not exactly the face-to-face that was probably considered when the commandment came out, at least how we receive it. But given the current circumstances, it functions very well. Okay, actually, there'd still be a reason for the priest. You still have the memorial sacrifices, morning and evening. You still have, the daily, the weekly, the monthly sacrifices. All those are memorial sacrifices. Those would all happen even if nobody sinned. The priest would be a lot skinnier, but the sacrifices there still would be sacrifices continuing.
If you guys are having this much trouble with the chat, there's a couple ways to figure out how to do this. If you're on mobile, you'll need to go to your phone settings and just enlarge the fonts there. For iPhones, it should be settings, display and brightness, or settings, general display and brightness, and that the font should be in there. If you're on desktop, then you're going to have to go to the settings on your browser and adjust the font size there.
Okay.
Here, you know what? Example would be better. This is a Google Chrome, so if you need to zoom in, you can do that. Can you read this easy? But that's gonna
What if you
mess up a little bit.
If you make this one live and then do change the settings?
The screen's live.
But this one's not bigger.
I'm getting there.
Oh,
this
sorry.
is the settings. So font size, you can make it very large. And then that'll just affect the font size. And then if we put the live stream back into here and let it adjust, it should be bigger. Should be being the keyword.
We're learning as we go.
Alright. Well, if not, then more learning to go.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll figure this out. Okay. Oh, we just lost all the...
It's loading.
Huh. Okay, anything else in our Parsha? Questions, comments, rebukes?
Where were you last?
It's right about there.
If the people were all non-sinful?
Yeah.
Gloria says if the people were all non-sinful, then there was no reason for the priest or Yeshua's sacrifice. And then Sabrina asked, how often did they do these offerings? Like daily, weekly, monthly, yearly?
Okay. The sacrifice, you had 4 basic sets of sacrifice. You have the daily offerings, you had the weekly offerings for Sabbath, you had the monthly offerings for the new moon, and then you had the yearly cycle, like in Leviticus 23. We're going to get into that in a couple weeks. And that's the yearly calendar. Those are the big events. But even Sabbath is listed there on those special days for God in Leviticus 23. The first thing God calls holy. Okay.
There were all types of the sacrifices.
Yeah, sorry.
Nicole says, I just never realized how much the one offering was involved. I honestly assumed it all fell on the Kohen. Imagine pushing your animal to the ground before shecking it.
Before
shecking it.
Yeah. I think it was last year, the year before. I had always assumed that it was the priest. The guy shows up with the animal and everything gets handled from there by the priest. But actually, the way it reads like the guy does his own slaughtering, the one bringing the sacrifice. So it's, you put your hand on the head of the animal, you confess your sins, or if it's just a Thanksgiving offering, Aaron takes over, immediately after that, but Moses gets it started. It's in a way, it's kind of a handoff of authority and function from Moses to Aaron in this process. So it's kind of interesting. Plus, there's a big advantage of being the guy who gets to watch it happen first, and then you trying to figure out how to make it happen from what you've been told to do. This is one of the reasons I thought it would be a good idea to do Passover live on Passover evening, because if you've never done Passover yourself, you may not be sure at all about what to do. And since I didn't think ahead enough to make sure that you all had Passover Haggadot, the Passover service booklets, we're kind of unequipped for it this year. I'll have to figure out some way of making that
I'll have
work.
to come back for that.
Yeah, that's right. It's only Tuesday, no rush.
Okay. So David says, according to the ancient texts, the priests only became hungry when Hashem's presence had left, especially the last 40 years before the destruction. And Auntie Barbara wants you to explain that the Kohen are to eat the sin offering, chapter 6, verse 23.
Okay. Part of the sin offering is a burnt offering. Part of it, the hind quarter, the right quarter, the sin offering was given to the priest. Whoever did the service of the sacrifice got to take that. You could cook it and eat it there, and I think you get to take it home to feed your family. So that God used the sacrifice system to feed the priests, and even the Levites got a piece of the action, because they got to eat too. Everyone got to eat of it. Actually, so the priests got to eat of the sin sacrifices, but there's a lot of other things that the rest of the Levites got to enjoy as well too. We get all that fleshed out as we go along. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of odd you're eating the sin sacrifice. I guess in a way, in a strange kind of way, you're making the sin disappear. Okay. Trying to breeze through. All right. Anything else in our section here in Vayikra? Any other questions, comments, rebukes? In this case, it's relatively straightforward. Not a lot of especially since we don't have a functioning temple or tabernacle, it's hard to see this and see all the detail of it. Okay. Oh, Jonathan. Hey, it's good to see you, dude. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, or rebukes? We can move on to...
Antigloria said, since the life is in the blood, then burning the life of the sin is burned up. Like, since...
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 40 years before the destruction of the temple, there were a lot of signs popped up to tell Israel that God was not going to accept the offerings, and that the temple itself would be destroyed. That's how it was interpreted. And of course, what happened 40 years before the destruction of the temple? Yeshua. Okay, let's move on to Yirmiyahu. Jeremiah 7:21.
Yeah. $7.21.
7:21.
There we go.
Okay.
At the top.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, there it is, 21. Okay.
I told you it was at the top.
My eyes are actually getting better, but reading computer text is one of the things that drives me crazy. So, just forgive me if I do a lot of squinting and trying to find a spot where my glasses focus well. It's a little interesting. All right. Okay, now notice God speaks to Israel. He says, you might as well eat your burnt offerings, the meat of your burnt offerings, along with that of your sacrifices. Basically what God is saying is, I'm not interested in half-hearted or improper sacrifice, or giving as seconds your sacrifices to God after you've pursued the gods of the Baalim as their primary. Now, little history. Who is Yirmiyahu? To whom was he a prophet and when? Okay, he was a prophet. He was a prophet at the very end of the during the Babylonian siege and the capture of Jerusalem, and a little bit after. And Jeremiah was a very immensely unpopular prophet because he kept telling everybody that Jerusalem's going to fall, everyone's going to be taken away, but don't worry, in 70 years you're going to come back. And so he was immensely unpopular because he did not have a happy message. And so this is right along the same line. One of the things Jeremiah complained about was, when the leaders of Israel decided to set their Jewish servants free, and then went back later and brought them back under their slavery, under their servitude. Jeremiah, through God's prompting, Jeremiah spoke up and told them that was extremely evil. So this is the guy that was not very well loved by the people running the operations at that time. But nonetheless, Jeremiah's remembered and the other guys aren't. Jeremiah's honored, but the other guys aren't. Okay. So the complaint then is the stubbornness of your heart, your evilness, living according to your own ways. This is why, especially in a Messianic circle, we are pounding so very much. And this might be a little annoying and maybe a little scary to people that aren't accustomed to this. That we're talking so much about obedience to God because this is the source of our relationship. This is the bringing out of our relationship with God. It's hard to have a relationship with somebody who never does what you ask or always works against what you want to do. It's hard to have a good relationship with that person. How much more so is our relationship with Almighty God, that our relationship goes better when we obey and do what He says. So this is what Yirmiyahu is complaining about with the people that were living in Jerusalem at this time. Okay, they instead of paying attention to him, they had stiff necks. Now it doesn't mean that you need a different pillow. Having a stiff neck has to do with riding a horse.
That was late. I'm sorry.
It has to do with how you handle an animal, whether it's a plow animal or riding a horse or a donkey. Okay, how do you change their direction when you're handling them? Well, you pull the reins, and what the reins do is it turns the animal's head, and then naturally the animal follows wherever they're facing. So to turn an animal, you turn their head. A stiff-necked animal is one who won't be turned, one who won't accept your directions. And that's the picture God uses frequently when talking about Israel being a stiff-necked people. God has given His directions, but we refuse to be guided by it. Okay? And this is a warning to all of us. What do you do with a stiff-necked animal who won't accept your directions? Okay? Or actually, first question would be, what can you do with a stiff-necked animal? Stiff-necked, yes, animal. What can you do with one? Not a whole lot. If you have to work extra hard to try to get the animal to do what you want it to do. Okay, and then that's takes all the fun out of doing what you intended to do in the first place. Okay, and then in the long run, what can you do with it? You have to, you have to let it go, or you have to train the animal with a little less than happy means. Okay, you have to discipline the animal, and this is the same picture, the same terminology that God uses with us, with Israel as a people. And with us as an individual, that He wants us to obey, but if we refuse to obey, then he has to deal with this in more stringent means.
Where are you at?
I completely lost where I'm at in this thing.
Okay, at the top, Auntie Barbara says she doesn't understand verse 22.
Verse 22. Probably because I can't see it right now.
For I didn't speak to her ancestors or give them orders concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices when I brought them out of the land of Egypt.
Okay. The commandment of the burnt sacrifices and offerings came after they left Egypt. Okay? So it was later on. This was, we're in this stage. The setting up of the tabernacle was, what is it, 1 year? It took a year, or was it 2 years? No, in the second year, sorry. It was 1 year of setting up the tabernacle. The commandments concerning the sacrifices was a year later, when it was time to actually operate the sacrifices. So, so you have, what God is telling Israel, whereas I just completely lost it again. Verse 22, yeah. He didn't speak to them up front about having to do this. God didn't tell Israel in Egypt, when you do these sacrifices well enough and perfectly enough, I'll get you out of Egypt. But rather, he brought them out of Egypt and then gave them a holy lifestyle to live. Okay. I think that's what he's meaning by that. But rather, he gave these general directions. Verse 23, pay attention to what I say, then I will be your God and you will be my people. Okay, in everything live according to the way that I order you, so that things will go well for you. Okay, and then, but they neither listened nor paid attention, but lived according to their own plans, in the stubbornness of their evil hearts, thus going backwards and not forwards. So here's the idea, even from the beginning. Okay, but the idea that giving the sacrifices, the way that the way it's commanded to us at this point, wasn't part of the original package. This is part of what Israel was supposed to learn to do. Now that they are a people by themselves and segregated to God and living according to God's ways.
Okay. David says he can't find the chapter in Talmud, but from what he remembers, some of the signs of Hashem's presence is the Ner Tamid would stay on during the day as well. Western one.
Yeah,
the bread of presence would stay fresh all week. Incense would fill Jerusalem, even to Jericho, to the point women did not have to use perfume.
Yeah, some of the... Okay. That one I didn't hear before, but that's... Yeah, there were signs that God gave from the time of Yeshua forward that the temple was going to be destroyed, and it was received as signs that the temple would be destroyed. The temple would be destroyed. Okay.
Jonathan says, I believe, Rabbi Jean, that God is bringing that out character people really are in this pandemic.
Oh yeah, it shows in this is, it's one of those things. It's an infectious disease. So the government says stay at home, get out of the way, don't hang out with a lot of people and try to restrict the flow of this pandemic. Okay, we can choose to not do that. I was out shopping yesterday, and about half the people in the market were wearing masks and the other half weren't. Okay, you can choose to not do that, and you can argue whether or not it's totally effective to wear masks or not. But the point is, anything will help. And so what do you do? Okay.
Okay. I think the last thing is David saying that the holy to Hashem lot would always land on the right hand of the priest on Yom Kippur.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Yeah, except for 40 years before, then it started to fall on the left on a regular basis.
And then the fuel for the altar would not need much fuel, but they still brought 2 pieces of wood just to fulfill the command.
Okay. I hadn't heard that, but that's interesting. Okay.
And then Nicole says, wow, great point, Jean. How can we expect to have a relationship with the Holy One if we refuse to listen and obey? So simple yet so difficult sometimes. Slay the Yetzer.
Yeah.
Pulling down all thoughts, strongholds, solties, and anything ungodly. Strongholds, solties. And anything ungodly.
Soul ties, maybe.
Oh, and anything ungodly as they arise. Overtake the Yetzer.
Yeah.
What's the Yetzer again?
Yetzer, that's... well, tomorrow we're going to call it today Yetzer. No, it's yesterday. Sorry. Yetzer is the inclination, the desire. Yetzer hara is usually the full phrase, the evil desire, the evil. So that's the Yetzer. Okay. Anything else in our reading on this portion? We have an add-on with chapter 9, is it?
Yes, chapter 9, verses 23 and 24.
Okay, 23, 24. Instead, let the boaster boast about this, that he understands. Let's back up to 22.
Right there.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The wise man should not boast of his wisdom. The powerful should not boast of his power. The wealthy should not boast of his wealth. I think it's a good way to set up that phrase. Instead, let the boaster boast about this, that he understands and knows me, that I am Adonai, practicing grace, justice, and righteousness in the land. For in these days I take pleasure, says Adonai. For in these things I take pleasure, says Adonai. So this is what he's looking for. He's looking for people with a relationship with him. Let's face it. How much can we approach God on our terms and impress him with who we are and what we can do and what we know? Okay. Our wisdom, is nothing compared to his, our power, our wealth. So rather, our approach to God should be to know him and to seek him for everything instead of trying to impress God with how wonderful we are. Okay, in that God will take pleasure, to do justice and righteousness and to follow his ways. Okay, then the last part, the days are coming, says Adonai, when I will punish all those who have been circumcised in their uncircumcision. Egypt, Yehuda, Edom, and the people of Ammon and Moab, and all those living in the desert who cut the edges of their beard. Of their beard is in parentheses. I'm not. For although all the goyim are uncircumcised, all the house of Israel have uncircumcised hearts. And that's part of the argument that Paul uses in Galatians, that the physical circumcision is not important compared to the heart being circumcised. Do we love God and do what he says because we love him and we want to exemplify his ways in the world, or are we simply just following a program for other people to be impressed? And so again, this is where the idea is, having a physical circumcision doesn't mean that God regards you as being circumcised. If your heart and your mind and your actions your attitudes are not following his ways, then you're behaving as uncircumcised, and that's how God will treat you.
Auntie's Barbara's asking what verse 24 means. The days are coming, says Adonai, when I will punish all those who have been circumcised in their uncircumcision.
Yeah. Okay, again, this is the circumcision of the heart. You can take a physical circumcision, but if your heart's not into walking with God, what value is the circumcision? It's useless. It's just a thing. So, we are, there is a commandment to circumcise. And I'm not saying don't do it. But what I'm saying is do it the right way with the right the right approach, the right attitude, the right Covina, the attitude. Don't do it just because you're supposed to do it. Do it because you love God and you want to walk in His ways. That way, the circumcision of the heart matches the flesh. Okay. Trying to read the print here.
Would Moshe be like the first Kohen Hagadol because he inaugurated the Levites?
Yeah. Yeah, in a way, he does. Although he doesn't stay in that function from this point forward. He basically hands off the operation of the tabernacle, as far as sacrifices are concerned, to Aaron and his sons for them to do it completely. Moses sort of takes a step back. So, yeah, in a sense, he acts as the first Kohen Gadol because he got it started. But Aaron is always regarded as officially as the first one, because Moses did what he was told, but Aaron was designated to do the job.
And yes, there is a delay between chats and us. There's about 15-30 seconds delay.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know how we're going to get past that. I don't know if that's maybe if we get a little bit better reliability on the internet connection, it might be a little quicker. But other than that, I'm not exactly sure. Okay, now, today's Shabbat Hagadol. Okay, so David and a few other people were mentioning that we have an additional reading because of Shabbat Hagadol, and it's from Malachi, the book of Malachi, and there's no way I'm going to read that tiny print.
I wouldn't trust Zoom right now. There's been a couple rumors that some accounts have been being hacked. So just for safety reasons, just try to stay away from Zoom for now. Oh,
yeah.
Which one are you looking at?
Yeah, actually, yesterday somebody had mentioned, it was on YouTube, so it's got to be true, that Zoom is actually being monitored by the Chinese government.
Where are you?
Hagadol.
Hagadol. No additional Torah reading. Haftarah is Malachi 3.
Yeah. Malachi, chapter trace. And verses
4 to 24.
4 to 24?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can start at the beginning if you want.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it because not everybody read this ahead of time. 4 to 20, verse 4 to 24?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's for, not for this week's reading, but for previous.
It's an additional.
I didn't have a verse 24 in Malachi 3.
No, it was on the back page, the Chagim, the special days.
I get verse 24 here.
Okay. Yeah, 4 to 24. If you want to go ahead and
start reading?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Look, I am sending my messenger to clear the way.
Verse 4, right?
I thought you said start from 1.
No, sorry, no. 4. It says 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Then the offering of Yehuda and Jerusalem will be pleasing to Adonai, as it was in the days of old, as in years gone by. Then I will approach you for judgment, and I will be quick to witness against sorcerers, adulterers, and perjurers, against those who take advantage of wage earners, widows, and orphans, against those who rob the foreigner of his rights and don't fear me, says Adonai Tzavot. But because I, Adonai, do not change, you sons of Yaakov will not be destroyed, since the days of your forefathers. You have returned from my laws and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says Adonai Tzavot. But you ask, in respect to what are we supposed to return? Can you, a person, rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how have we robbed you? In tithes and voluntary contributions. A curse is on you, on your whole nation, because you rob me. Bring the whole tenth into the storehouse, so that there will be food in my house, and put me to the test, says Adonai Tzavot. See if I won't open for you the floodgates of heaven, and pour out for you a blessing far beyond your needs. For your sakes I will forbid the devourer to destroy the yield from your soil, and your vine will not lose its fruit before harvest time, says Adonai Tzavot. All nations will call you happy, for you will be a land of delight, says Adonai Tzavot. You have spoken strongly against me, says Adonai. Yet you say, how have we spoken against you? By saying, there is no point in serving God. What good is it to obey his orders, or talk about as mourners before Adonai Tzavot? We consider the arrogant happy, also evildoers prosper. They put God to the test, nevertheless they escape. Then those who feared Adonai spoke together, and Adonai listened and heard. A record book was written in his presence for those who feared Adonai and had respect for his name. They will be mine, says Adonai Tzavot. On the day when I compose my own special treasure, I will spare them as a man spares his own son who serves them. Then once again you will see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between the person who serves God and the one that doesn't serve him. For the day is coming, burning like a furnace, when all the proud and evil doers will be stubble. The day that is coming will set them ablaze, says Adonai Tzavot, and leave them neither root nor branch. But you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings, and you will break out leaping like calves released from the stall. You will trample the wicked, they will be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day when I take action, says Adonai Tzavot. Remember the Torah of Moshe my servant, which I enjoined on him at Horeb. Laws and rulings for all Israel. Look, I will send to you Eliyahu the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of Adonai. He will return the hearts to the fathers of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Otherwise I will come and strike the land with complete destruction. Look, I will send to you Eliyahu the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of Adonai.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, again, Malachi was a prophet to whom and when? Okay, this is actually, he was the last of the officially recognized prophets, and he actually spoke about 100 years after the return of Israel from Babylon and Persia. So this it's about 100 years later is when Malachi is doing his thing. Okay, so that's the timing. Now, to whom was he speaking? Of course, he was in Israel talking to the people that had returned, the descendants of those people who had returned 100 years ago. And so what happened? Things got sloppy again. People stopped following the ways of Adonai and doing their own thing and not performing that what they're supposed to do. Okay, this is where we get some often misused texts about what to do with tithes and offerings. But if you look at the context of the statement, what was the purpose of God calling for foodstuffs to be brought into the temple? It's so that the priests and the Levites would have had food to eat. Okay, it wasn't bringing money. It wasn't having local congregations that you supported with what they labeled, which they incorrectly label as tithes and offerings. But rather, it was bringing it into God's house. The one place, so that the people who served God in taking in the sacrifices and doing the work of the temple would be, they would basically get paid out of what the people brought out of the tithes of their produce. So, but the reason for this is, even 100 years after the revival of Nehemiah, you have a society that once again is doing their own thing and not walking in the ways of the Lord. Okay.
Auntie Kelly wants us to post the Parsha schedule too.
Yeah,
I'll add that.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Nicole recommends Google Hangouts, so I'll check that out later.
Okay.
Nicole says, I want to know God and rejoice in it. Knowing is learning, learning is loving and drawing near. Obeying is abiding, abiding is thriving in Him only.
Amen.
Okay. David suggests WebEx. I get WebEx for free because I'm a student. I don't know how that would work for private organizations like us. Or if I can host one. I'm not even sure if I can do that yet. So I'll have to do more research on that. David says, all the congregations in the world should tithe to the temple when it is built. Also, Rome should help big time, seeing they have been benefiting for such a long time.
Okay. Anything else in our Haftarah portion? Any other questions, comments, or rebukes? Okay. Let's move on to the Brit Hadashah, which is Hebrews 9:11 to the end of the chapter. This is 3 weeks ago that we had the first part of Hebrews 9, verse 11. Okay.
I think they might be monitoring what kind of teachers get WebEx for free, because I know my professors over at school get WebEx for free, but I don't know if Dad would count technically as a teacher according to the current guidelines.
According to some people, I don't.
I'll have to check.
Okay. So, but when Messiah appeared as Kohen Gadol of the good things that are happening already. This is a comparison between what Messiah did compared to what was already existing. Notice this writer says these are good things. That God had arranged to take care of sin through the Yom Kippur sacrifice. That was a good thing. Some people get too far polar with the description by saying, oh, that was all bad stuff. No, it wasn't. It was good. God gave us an opportunity to deal with our sins. That's a good thing, right? But we have a better in Messiah. Okay? We have a better in Messiah. So now that the better has come, it's only natural to embrace the better and not return to the older, or the prior, I should say. Not older, but prior. Even though it's listed as good, now we have better. Okay? And so we need to look at this. Oh, sorry. Okay. And again, it expands on not with the blood of bulls and goats and calves, but by his own blood. So this was the better sacrifice. One's placement, Yeshua's sacrifice was in the heavenlies, in the holy altar of God in the heavens, and it was his own blood and not the yearly goat and bull It's usually translated as bull, but remember it's probably a yearling, so you can still call it a calf maybe. So if the sprinkling of blood purifies the unclean person, in the prior paradigm, how much more the blood of Messiah would cleanse us. So we're seeing a juxtaposition, but remember the juxtaposition isn't old and bad and evil, but rather it was good because it worked, but now we have a better. And that's what we need to remind ourselves. We have a better. Let's see, verse 15. What's that?
Where are you at?
I just was in the chapter above. Verse 15 is where I'm going to go next.
15 is now at the top.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's because of this death that he is a mediator of a new covenant, or will, because a death has occurred which sets people free from the transgressions committed under the first covenant. Okay? So, what is he getting at? And the description here is the description is that we have a better covenant compared to the first one, which is true. Okay, and I want to get to the spot where
what are you looking for?
I'm scanning quickly, probably not seeing what I need to see. Just went right past it. Back up to verse 16. For there is a will, there must necessarily be produced evidence of the maker's death, since a will goes into effect only upon death. So he's quoting common Roman law, as an example of this better sacrifice for us didn't exist until Yeshua died and became our sacrifice. Okay. And so until that moment, the prior covenant was still effective. Even though it was good, it wasn't perfect. Okay, and that's part of the argument that goes on here. And going through steps of trying to explain this, it was inaugurated with blood, just like the first covenant was inaugurated with blood. The difference is you had bulls and goats in the first covenant, but now you have Messiah himself and his blood. So this is what makes it a superior sacrifice and eminently more efficacious. Then verse 23, this is how the copies of the heavenly things had to be purified with the blood of Yeshua. But the heavenly things themselves require better sacrifices than these. Talking about the prior sacrifice, not Yeshua. For the Messiah has entered a holiest place, which is not man-made, and merely a copy of the true one. Okay, so you have throughout this chapter a constant juxtaposition between the good and the better. Let's see. And then verse 25 speaks to an issue that was a problem of that day. Further, he did not enter heaven to offer himself over and over again, like the Kohen HaGadol, who enters the holiest place year after year with blood that is not his own. For then he would have had to suffer death many times, from the founding of the universe on. But as it is, he has appeared once at the end of the ages in order to do away with sin through the sacrifice of himself. Just as human beings have to die once, but after this comes judgment, so also the Messiah, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to deliver those who are eagerly awaiting for him. And so here again is the completion of the idea. In the good covenant, every year we had to have Yom Kippur to deal with the sins of Israel and the sins of mankind. Now we have a once for all in Messiah Yeshua. And as the argument goes on further through the end of the letter, what that means is, we like to say that Yeshua didn't come to eliminate Torah. Yet the argument here is there is one point that does have to change. And that change is that we don't need the blood of bulls and goats for our sins any longer, because we have that once for all in Messiah Yeshua. Okay. And that's going to be fleshed out in the discussion that goes on after this point, after this reading. Because it's the once for all. Okay. He doesn't have to come back and do it again. It's once for all. Okay. And so, so you die once, and then comes the judgment. You cast your sins upon Messiah's sacrifice once for all. Then when the judgment comes, you will be, despite the fact that reality is a little bit south of this description, will be judged as holy. We will be judged as if having never sinned, because when Messiah says he's one of mine, Dad, that's the end of it. That's the end of the trial. Okay. And then the last phrase, there's a little bit of difficulty in the translation, because a lot of translations will say, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but for salvation. Okay. And you can get confused if you think of salvation and sin as being two separate things, or one thing, I should say. So he came to deal with our sins. Now he's coming back to redeem us from the world, to get us away from the world and bring us home to his place. Okay. So it's our deliverance. The Complete Jewish Bible Translation explains this a little bit better, because in King's English, sin and salvation are put as if they were opposites, and they shouldn't be, because the difference is the first visit was to deal with our sins. The second visit is to bring us home. Okay. And so they're not opposite ideas, but we're used to that but in the conjunction that clues us in English that this is an opposite, and that's not how it should read. Okay, the not there isn't not what Yeshua would. The not there was not for our redemption from sin, but our redemption from judgment is the coming thing, that we are going to be rescued. Okay.
Okay, first question is from Jonathan. Rabbi, on the subject of tithes, offering, and sacrifices, are they not three different things? Are they not three different things? Are right? They do confuse Malachi 3 nowadays with money, even though we know it was produce.
Yes. That's the difficulty, because that's the modern modern paradigm of how you deal with finances. It was never intended for us to use a 10% of what we earn by our own work, like in a job, and owe that to the local congregation. It is clearly stated in the text over and over again. It's the produce of the land, being given for the benefit of the priest and also for the Levites. Okay. And that's God's design. So the difference is that's tithing. Okay. First fruits is another thing. Tithe is 1/10 of everything you harvest. The first fruit is the best of what comes right at the first. So, for example, the end of this next week, we're going to have Yom HaBikurim, the Feast of First Fruits, because it's going to be the Sabbath after Passover. That Sabbath after Passover is when that holiday lands. The day after the Sabbath, I should say. So it's going to be Saturday night. That celebration is going to begin. And we're going to celebrate all the good stuff that God gives us, because we're celebrating, we're thanking God for the stuff that he gives us. And so again though, that's agribusiness, and it was given to the priest. Okay? It was agricultural stuff. It wasn't income. It wasn't money income, let's put it that way. Okay. Now, offering, again, all the terminology of offering in the Bible has to do with making what we covered last week, which is the free will offerings. Okay, giving, again, it wasn't money out of our pocket. It was from the stuff that God gave us through agribusiness. Okay, and so the offerings, and we use the word offering, like you said, Jonathan. It's so frequently used and abused that we think that's what offerings are supposed to be. But offerings are something specifically different. Now, what we have that's different, that's not explained in the Torah or in the Tanakh, is that by the time you get to the book of Acts and the letter writing, you have a different feature happening. You have believers spread throughout the Roman world who, because of the great communications that goes on, because of the Roman roads and stuff, know that there is going to be a famine. There's going to be problems in the land amongst the believers who are in the land of Israel. Because if you read Acts, and there's a prophecy, there's going to be a famine in the whole world. Okay, that's what the English translation usually says, a famine in the whole world. And yet, what did they propose to do? Let's send relief to Israel. Well, if the whole world's going to have a famine, why not stock up food for yourselves and send some to Israel also? But it was the only focus of all the stuff, and everything Paul wrote about was only focused about sending relief to Israel, to multiple letters, multiple congregations, and in the book of Acts that was mentioned. So it was and so does this count as an offering? No, it's tzedakah, it's charity. It's giving to people who need it. Okay, and all the instructions that Paul gives, he doesn't say it as plainly as you have to figure it out by the way he says it. That when you begin your work week, okay, on the first day when you begin your work week, and you lay out your finances for the week, as the Lord has prospered you. In other words, your income versus your outgo. If you have a profit, set some of that aside to hold for when the collection comes for this relief, you have it ready. That's exactly what he says. He doesn't say support your local congregation with 10% of what you earn. Okay, that's an added thing that people have added in to squeeze stuff out of people, and to use guilt as a method for doing it. But it was a matter of giving relief to Israel. Okay, and it was done by people making pledges. That's why Paul said, set some aside every week so you're not left embarrassed when it's time to collect and you don't have it. So it was apparently in Corinth Corinth was very competitive on a social spiritual level, and so there's probably some guys who thought they wanted to make some notice for themselves by offering to make a huge contribution, to which everybody said, oh, that guy's really spiritual, and then go home and figure out, how am I going to pay for this? Well, Paul's suggestion was, get started now, set a little aside every time, so by the time the time comes to collect, you're ready. It has nothing to do with a weekly collection at the congregation, calling it highfalutin names like tithes and offerings and first fruits and whatever. So sorry, that's a long-winded explanation, but it's we run into this quite frequently, and so I want you guys to be well equipped to deal with it when you run into that discussion. Okay, let's see, work my way down here.
David says, yet Yeshua was sacrificed Passover from the foundation of the world.
Yeah, it was planned in advance. Yeah. Jonathan, in the millennial, will not be any kinds of sacrifices besides sin offering. It appears when you look at the fact that you have, for absolutely sure, we know Sukkot is going to happen. Okay, there are sacrifices associated with Sukkot that are not sin sacrifices. You have a goat in each of the 7 days that are sacrifices. That's specifically for a sin sacrifice, but nonetheless, those sacrifices will be happening. There's no language in Zechariah to say, but we won't be doing any sin sacrifices. We won't be doing any sacrifices at that point. And we know from the explanations of how the end of days comes up that there's going to be a resumption of sacrifices, where the anti-Messiah, the beast, is going to cause that to stop. So yeah, there are going to be sacrifices, and the difference, though, Hebrews argues that there's no need to resume sin sacrifices because Messiahs are once for all, and that's the change in the law that shortly after chapter 11 here is the argument that needs to happen. And that's I think it's the only place in the entire Brit Chadashah where a change in the law is recommended. So if anybody thinks that gives you an excuse to wholesale change anything you want, take a step back and realize that's the only statement made in favor of changing something that already exists. Okay. Well, I'm assuming at this point that there will be a resumption of everything that's not a sin offering. So the Thanksgiving offerings, the peace offerings, may still resume. It's one of those things we're going to have to see when it happens, because I don't think there's enough information for us to clue what's going on, especially since the language in the Brit Chadashah is mostly written about things that were happening outside of Israel, some of it after the destruction of the temple, and no more sacrifices happening anyways. So I'm going to take a wait and see for sure on that. But from what I can see, we have specific language that suggests the sin sacrifices won't be necessary. But the rest of it might. God still loves barbecue. Okay. Anything else on our readings? Any part of it? Any other further questions, comments, or rebukes? I know I missed a lot of comments. Sorry about that. I'll try to get a little more clued into the conversation as it goes. So if I didn't respond to something you put out, don't take it personal. I get as much space to read your comments as you do on your screen. So after a few moments, depending on how fast people are typing, I'm going to lose track of what was said. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for the channel. Therefore, when we light up for the live posts and stuff, it should let you know that we're up rather than you having to sit around and wait and hope that you catch it. That's it. Use the comment section on the YouTube page if you have anything to add, especially any suggestions for getting this done better. This was our first time up. There's a lot of humming and hawing and not exactly sure how things are working. Thank you for your patience and all that, but we will get better as time goes on. And I think we're going to call it for the day. My voice is getting tired. Let me know if you want to do Wednesday for Galatians. But just for the sake of getting it all down on as a series, I may just start, because we're only into the second one. May redo the first one just so we can get it up and on the system here. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to have Galatians on Wednesday, or if you want to add a segment after this one to do Galatians. We'll look into that. Whichever way you guys would rather do. Okay? So, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Have a good week. Stay safe. Wear your masks. Do your congregating online as much as you can. And this certainly beats sitting at home doing nothing. You're sitting at home and at least chat a little bit. Okay? Okay. Well, God bless you.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
From all of us to all of you. Shabbat Shalom. Okay.
If anybody wants to hang out.
Can I end here?
Yeah, yeah, I guess.
Alright. I've got to let it.
Because we need to put two of them to post, right?
Yeah.